For 1,000 years, the Orient dynasty ruled over the vast lands of Solara. Its banners, glowing like golden fire, flew above every city and fortress. The people believed the dynasty was eternal, having survived wars, invasions, plagues, and famines. At the heart of this empire stood the Palace of Asterion, a breathtaking spectacle of marble halls, silk curtains, and secrets that never escaped its walls. Within this grand palace, amidst thousands of servants, lived a man no one ever noticed. His name was Lorien Vale, the imperial chef. He moved like a ghost through the bustling kitchens, his hands crafting exquisite dishes for kings and nobles who never bothered to learn his face. For 20 years, he had served 3 emperors, but none was more feared than the fourth, Emperor Cassian, the final ruler of the ancient Orient line. Cassian was a man consumed by paranoia. He trusted no advisor, no priest, and no general. Yet, in a strange twist of fate, he placed his absolute trust in his chef. Every night, Lorien prepared the emperor's favorite dessert, the Asterion honey pudding, a dish that had graced the table of every Orient ruler since the dynasty's dawn. Lorien saw his work as a sacred duty. He believed loyalty to the throne was the bedrock of order and stability for the entire empire. But that belief was about to shatter. Everything changed the day he learned of his brother's fate. Lorien had a younger brother, Eldrin, who served in the city watch, just beyond the palace walls. Eldrin was a kind, honest man who still believed the dynasty could protect its people. One freezing winter night, Lorien went to visit him, only to find the watch barracks eerily silent, sealed by the emperor's direct order. A lone commander, his face etched with fear, pulled Lorien aside and whispered the devastating truth. Eldrin had spoken out against the crushing taxes that were starving the common folk. For this simple act of compassion, Emperor Cassian had branded him a traitor. Eldrin was executed at dawn, without a trial, without a chance to defend himself. Lorien returned to the palace kitchens with a heart turned to stone, his grief a silence heavier than iron. Something deep inside him had broken, a wound that would never heal. His loyalty, once unwavering, now lay in ashes. 2 weeks later, the palace was a whirlwind of activity, preparing for the Millennial Jubilee, a grand celebration marking 1,000 years of Orient rule. Foreign kings and queens arrived bearing lavish gifts. Priests walked the streets, offering blessings to the cheering crowds who sang ancient hymns of unity. But beneath this glittering facade, fear festered in the shadows. A rebellion was stirring in the eastern provinces, famine was spreading through the north, and whispers of dissent grew louder among the generals, who questioned their emperor's sanity. The dynasty was trembling, its golden armor cracking under the strain, but Cassian refused to see it. He demanded perfection for the Jubilee feast, especially the ancient honey pudding that only Lorien could prepare. On the day of the feast, Lorien cooked as he always did, his movements precise and automatic, but his heart was as cold as the winter wind howling outside. He roasted quail, prepared fragrant breads, and stirred spice wine in great bronze pots. Then, the time came to make the sacred dessert. He reached for the ornate jar that held the royal honey. His hand hovered over it for a moment, then slowly moved aside. Instead, he reached for a small, dark vial hidden in his tunic. It contained faron blossom extract. In small doses, it was a potent healer. In a large dose, it silenced a beating heart within moments, leaving no trace. Lorien didn't choose poison. Poison leaves questions, and he wanted none. Faron blossom tastes just like honey. It ends a life without mark or sign, a silent, invisible assassin. With steady hands, he mixed the extract into the golden pudding. He told no one. There was no thought of glory or revenge in his mind, only the quiet, haunting memory of his brother's smile. That night, the great hall was a sea of splendor. Emperor Cassian sat upon his golden throne, basking in the adoration of thousands. Musicians played ancient songs of triumph, and nobles bowed in rehearsed admiration. The moment arrived. Lorien stepped forward from the shadows, carrying a silver tray. Upon it sat a single bowl of warm, golden pudding. He placed it before the emperor. The entire hall fell silent, as if the empire itself held its breath, waiting. Castian lifted the silver spoon, took a bite of his favorite dessert, the dessert that had comforted his ancestors for a millennium. The moment it touched his tongue, his hand tightened on the spoon, his eyes widened, not in pleasure, but in sharp, sudden surprise. The spoon clattered onto the marble floor. He collapsed without a sound, a puppet whose strings had been cut. The hall exploded into chaos, panic erupted. Priests rushed to the emperor's side. Guards shouted orders that no one heard, and foreign dignitaries stared in horror. But no healer, no magic, could reverse the work of the Farron Blossom. Emperor Castian, the last of the Orion line, was dead. His death struck the empire like a hammer shattering glass. With no clear heir, powerful lords immediately declared themselves the rightful rulers. Generals, loyal only to themselves, divided the imperial army. Rebel factions, seeing their opportunity, stormed the outer districts of the capital. The council members turned on one another, their alliances dissolving into bitter rivalries. The unity that had held for 10 centuries shattered like fine crystal. Chaos consumed the capital. Smoke from burning markets choked the air. Provinces declared their independence, breaking away from the collapsing empire. Old, forgotten rivalries resurfaced with bloody vengeance. Within months, the empire splintered. Within a year, the Orion dynasty, which had stood for 1,000 years, was gone, its end final and irreversible. And what of Lorien? He did not flee. He simply walked out of the palace gates, melting into the cold, chaotic city. His fate became a legend, a whisper on the wind. Some said rebels captured and executed him. Others believed he vanished into the mountains, seeking solitude. A few whispered that he opened a small, roadside tavern far from any crown or banner, living out his days in quiet anonymity. No historian ever discovered the truth. Yet, all historical records agreed on one undeniable fact. The fall of the mighty Orion dynasty began not with a war or an invasion, but with a single bowl of honey pudding, served by a single, grieving chef. And for generations after, long after the empire was dust, parents would tell their children a warning that outlived the kings and their castles. Fear the chef who cooks in silence. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tales from history and legend. See you next time.